Hi everyone, today I'm covering the two stocks that I bought this week, and both of these stocks, well, one of them was on the free UK stocks to buy June 2020, and one of them was on the free US stocks to buy 2020. So these were both featured this week that I said at some point this week I'll buy them, and I actually bought these two companies on Monday, which was a bit of a big jump in the market, but still, I think they're at decent prices, so I'm happy I did get into them. Now, as always guys, if you can smash that like button, that'll be absolutely amazing, and we'll get stuck into the video. Now, I'm going to say that these two are probably the last two companies that I'm going to be buying for a while, just because of where the stock market is. It's now got to prices where I'm like, these valuations are either fair value or overvalued, and I like buying stocks undervalued. So for me, the prices are just a little bit too much now, but at the same time, it works out totally fine because, as I think like some of you guys would have been, I was buying really heavy over like the last couple of months, and that kind of cash pile that I built up through like November 2019 all the way into about February, I think that's when the coronavirus started hitting the markets, about Feb time 2020, I started using a lot of my cash pile, and my cash pile was like 30-40% at one point, and obviously that came all the way down to 10%. So with my cash pile going down, I need to start building that back up, ready for when there's a next correction. I mean, that might be 1 month away, it might be a year away, we don't know, but I just need to start building up that cash pile, because if the stock market does dip, I need to be in a position to go buy a lot of these stocks at cheap prices, just like how I was in February, March, April time this year. Let's get stuck into the two stocks I bought. So number one, I'm going to cover the UK stock that I bought first, which was Dark Group, or which is more widely known as Jet2 Holidays, which is a company that is quite massive in the UK. Now, this is an airline company, and obviously they've been affected a lot by the coronavirus because of not being able to operate basically. And it's kind of like a cheaper package holiday company. And for me, when I said like airline, the big thing about this is there's a lot of risk in this sector, but if you can find the right company that's going to offer fantastic growth after the coronavirus, a well-run company that had a good balance sheet going into it, that's kind of the airline that you need to go for. And for me, I looked into Dark Group and I really liked what was going on with this company. Now, the stock itself was down huge, and in fact it's still at pretty decent cheap prices, to be fair. It was down huge because of the coronavirus, and when I looked into this company, first of all, it's a company that I use, so I've got a good understanding of this company, and first of all, the reputation on Jet2 side, all I've ever seen in Jet2 is busy planes, and even though there's not much loyalty in the airline sector, for me, Jet2 has a little bit of loyalty there, because I think people just have a really good experience, how cheap it is, and I believe it's probably one of the only kind of airline companies that actually demands or has a little bit of loyalty with the customers. For me, whenever I'm going on holiday, the first website I always check is Jet2 because I really like travelling with them. So there is a little bit of loyalty there with Jet2. I like them, and what I've seen other people like them. As well as that, I like the marketing. I think they are kind of annoying with them Jess Glynn like adverts, but at the same time, they stick in your head, and they are kind of, they've got that kind of reputation. So I think from a marketing point of view, they've done really well. Now, previously going into this, Jet2 offered huge growth. It was doing fantastic on the EPS and revenue front, and I think that will carry on going forward. And I think if it carries on with the marketing, it'll do absolutely fine. Now, obviously the thing is the coronavirus, how much is this going to affect airlines after all this? Now, I think that personally, sure, I think 2020 is probably a write-off for airlines. 2021, I think we're looking at probably 2019 numbers, and then 2022, I think we might see a little bit more growth there. So it is a market that's been hurt, and I think it's going to be hurt for the next year, 2 years. But I've seen a few people coming out and saying the airlines are pretty much going to be wrecked for the next 3 years, and I totally disagree with that. I think you'll be surprised how many people will be keen to get back on holiday and go travelling again. I think that it will recover quite quick, and people aren't kind of pricing that in. And if you're with the right company that can capitalise on that, you should do really well, and I think Dark Group has that. And of course, last thing was a balance sheet. I'm looking for a company in this space that has a good balance sheet. And when I was looking at Dark Group, it was a company that had a decent amount of cash to debt, and that's what really drew me to Dark Group. Because with that balance sheet, it can kind of weather what's happened with the coronavirus, and it won't need to take off like that many loans. Not that many loans, it means that profit they make will be able to stay in the company with dividends, rather than going out and paying for these loans that it would have taken on like some other companies have had to do. So for me, I really like that group, and with a lot of these airlines that might struggle after this, we've seen what happened with Thomas Cook, we've seen what's happening with Virgin. I think Jet2 is in a place that it wasn't struggling beforehand, and he'll carry on doing really well and capitalise from them companies that are really struggling. So for me, Jet2 was a solid pickup. Next up is Altria Group, and I realised this actually when I was editing like in my last video. I've got to be really careful not to put my Yorkshire accent when I say Altria Group, because I always say like Altria with a U, like Altria Group, and I've got to actually pronounce it and try and like stop my Yorkshire accent from coming out on these videos. So I'll try and say Altria Group just to try and be a little bit more clear on that one. But anyway, Altria Group is a cigarette manufacturer, and that's what they've always been known as. And this is really a stock that I'm getting in for the dividend. Now, obviously, it pays a dividend of about 8%. It's nearly 9%, so we'll class this one as a 9% dividend yield, which is a fantastic dividend. Now, if this dividend is secure, that's a really good pickup. And for me, it's a very secure dividend. Now, as well with Altria Group, it is down at a massive discount. It has sold off absolutely huge. Now, what a few people see with dividend stocks is they see the stock down huge and then they think, oh, look at that yield, it's pretty attractive. But then they don't realise that if the stock carries on going down, you actually end up losing a lot of share price that kind of cancels out your dividend. So you get like an 8% dividend, but then the stock moves down 20-30%. You're actually down on your position, even with your dividend included. So you've got to be careful. Now, for me, with picking up this like 9% dividend, I already feel like the share price is quite cheap as well. Like for me, Altria stock should be something like a $60 stock at least right now. So I think that when you look at it, it's at 35 and it should be a $60 stock. That's nearly 100% upside right there. So it offers some really good returns, I think, on the share price, and as well as picking up that high dividend yield. Now, what drew me into Altria is the management, I think, have done a good job. The balance sheet isn't bad, especially with this company. It'll offer good like EPS and profit growth, so it'll carry on easily like being able to pay that dividend. And management have kind of realised to like the decline in smoking and kind of tried to diverse the company by going into vaping, which a lot of smokers have moved to vaping with the acquisition of Juul. As well as that, it's also moved into the developing MJ sector, and it's picked up the Cronus Group, and also it's got into like the drinking sector as well, because it had a little bit of an investment into Bud. So it's kind of diversified it really well. Management do a really good job of keeping a lot of cash off that balance sheet. So he does that by paying the dividend, for example. Because a company like this, it's very open to getting a lot of fines, with it being kind of products that kind of affect health. It's quite a tricky one, and it's always open to kind of like government fines, and it doesn't want to be like in a Facebook position where it has so much cash on the balance sheet, because if they see that, they're going to get fined absolutely huge. You look at Facebook, they kind of get fined like billions of pounds, where you look at some companies that kind of do just as a bad thing, but their fine's only like a couple of million, because they kind of play like the innocent like guy of like, oh, don't fine us that much because we haven't got that much money, we'll go bankrupt. When I look at Facebook, like, yeah, you've got 60 billion on your balance sheet, you can afford to pay us like 5 billion. So that's why Facebook always get like heavy fines compared to something like Altria that kind of get away with like only fines in like the millions, because of like how well they manage that balance sheet, which is a credit to the management team, and that's why you get such a good dividend yield really on this stock. So for me, it's a little bit of a dividend play, but at the same time, I am still expecting the share price to go up a little bit from here. So guys, those are the two stocks I bought this week. Like I say, I might be the last two that I buy for a little while now, but I bought them on Monday, so I hope you enjoy the video. I hope you enjoy the transparency of me sharing like all the moves I make in the stock market. As always, if you can smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't, I'll see you in the next one.